Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the webinar. We're excited to chat with you today about creating smoke-free environments and policies for childcare providers. My name is Sarah, and I'm here with my colleague Meg. We're from the Breathe Easy Coalition, and we're looking forward to chatting with you over the next hour. Before we jump into the webinar, I want to go over a couple of quick logistics. Just so that people know, throughout the webinar today, everyone will be muted so that we can keep from having too much background noise. And we'll be answering questions at the end of the presentation. But we know that they come up throughout, so we want to make sure we're able to capture all of your questions. So please make sure to enter them at any time in the text box on GoToWebinar next to underneath the questions section. And we'll make sure to get all of those answered for you. Also, we'll be recording this webinar and making it available online on our Breathe Easy Coalition YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/sfhousing. So it's an opportunity to go back and learn more about the webinar, of the topics that we're looking at, or be able to share with colleagues who might also want to view the webinar. And we will be making a certificate available after a short evaluation at the end of the webinar for people looking for continuing education credits. And so if you have colleagues who are also interested in that but unable to participate today, they will be able to go on and check out that YouTube link and be able to participate and still get their contact hour. So just to give you a little bit of background about the Breathe Easy Coalition before we move into the meat and potatoes of our webinar, we're a statewide organization that works to reduce exposure to secondhand smoke through the promotion of strong voluntary policies that lead to reduced tobacco use and increased tobacco-free living throughout the state of Maine. The work is made possible through funding and support from the Maine CDC and the Partnership for a Tobacco-Free Maine. We work primarily through four statewide initiatives on multi-unit housing, colleges, hospitals, and behavioral health facilities, as well as working on other initiatives, including supporting smoke-free childcares. And just to reiterate a little bit to sort of set the stage as to why we're going to take this on, we know that you as childcare providers have a really important role in making sure to nurture and support children with good habits and give them sort of that early step in life for that create foundations for lifelong healthy habits. And so this is a great opportunity to be able to address secondhand smoke and tobacco as you're serving as role models and being a powerful positive force in encouraging healthy habits for the families you're serving. So we hope that this can be an opportunity to learn a few things throughout this webinar that can be helpful to take back into practice for your childcare facility.
All right, so starting around the state laws regarding smoking around children, especially in regards to childcare sites. So if you are at a center-based facility, which is anything that's not in the home you live in, smoking and the use of electronic smoking devices such as e-cigarettes and personal vaporizers is not allowed in all indoor locations at all times. That's whether there are children there or not, and outdoors when children under your care are present. If you work in a home-based childcare setting, so this is something that is within the home that you live in 24 hours a day, smoking, including the use of e-cigarettes or electronic smoking devices, is not allowed throughout the home during the hours of operation as a daycare or babysitting service, and outdoors when children under the care are present. And this is the only new piece to this law, if you were familiar with some of these things, is the inclusion of electronic smoking devices, and that was effective this past October 2015. So what about state law around smoking in the workplace? So this is more pertinent to center-based facilities, but smoking is against the law in all enclosed areas or workplaces, and that is regardless of whether you're a childcare provider or not, any employer setting. Smoking is also not allowed in employer-owned or leased vehicles, and in employee-owned vehicles when another person is in the vehicle and that vehicle is being used for the course of work. So if Sarah and I were driving down the road and I was in my own car, I could not smoke with Sarah in that vehicle so long as we were there for work purposes, just to clarify that. So a few more pieces around state laws regarding smoke-free workplaces. So every employer in Maine needs to have a written smoking policy that complies with state law, and that policy needs to be posted where employees can see it. Any employee who wants a copy of the policy should get a copy, and the business should make sure that people are following it. And that compliance with state law is that minimum smoke-free inside all the time and at least 20 feet from any door, window, vent, air conditioning unit, or anything like that. And then the final piece around smoking laws in Maine, smoking in vehicles when children are present is prohibited. So that is the operator of the vehicle or any passengers cannot be smoking in the vehicle when someone under the age of 16 is present. And then there are free resources available regarding smoke-free areas in the state of Maine, so you can order signs at that website there, and we'll repeat all of these resources multiple times throughout this webinar. So the website is ptmstore.org. We have sample policy language. We have a toolkit that you can download on our website. That all of these things have all the information that we're talking about today and that I have just talked about in them.
Great. So why do we have these policies? Why are they important to put into place? Really talking about the dangers of second and third-hand smoke. We know that there's no safe level of exposure to secondhand smoke, which is what comes off the burning end of a cigarette or what is exhaled by a smoker, but many fewer people are aware of the term third-hand smoke, which stands for the lingering sort of tobacco residue that comes after a cigarette or cigar has been sort of put out, but remains and lingers on surfaces such as clothing, hair, rugs, furniture, or car interiors, depending on where the smoking is happening. It both contains toxins as well as can have an odor. It's released into the air from surfaces and can be inhaled by children. And we know that third-hand smoke also contains nicotine and other cancer-causing chemicals, which can be very harmful. But also it builds up and resists normal cleaning, but that third-hand smoke can be very dangerous to children and to infants, especially because they're closer to those surfaces, but can also be known to trigger asthma attacks and be a contributor to sudden infant death syndrome. So talking about how we can protect kids from these dangers of second and third-hand smoke, as well as protecting your staff, it can be really a great reason to make a smoke-free environment and extend upon those laws that Meg was just talking about. So creating a 100% smoke-free environment means that you're not allowing smoking in your home or a childcare facility or anywhere that children may play. Because oftentimes we know that cigarette butts are also a very littered item, and we don't want children to be put into a situation where they might potentially pick that up and put it in their mouth, being exposed to those toxins from a poisoning potential. So creating your policy to be stronger and looking at your entire property, including personal vehicles parked on the facility property, can be a great step in supporting this. So, and then also creates further sort of proof as to what your policy is. It's very clear that your facility does not support smoking. It really is focused about being about the smoke, not the smoker, and taking that smoking away from the property. And hopefully that could lead to people being ready to quit, but it will make sure to ensure that children are protected from secondhand, third-hand smoke. So when you're adopting a policy, and as Meg mentioned, we have template language, you want to make sure that you're ensuring that everyone is complying with the policy, looking at it from a standpoint that it's really about wellness and about positive role modeling for children. So when we talk about third-hand smoke and pieces, we really also want to be thinking about the fact that it lingers, that it stays on that clothing, on the hair, skin, different components. So making sure that you're including third-hand smoke in your policy, that you're talking about different components, you're looking at what your providers are doing if they're taking breaks to potentially go out and smoke. So asking that they take additional garments, such as wearing hats or coats, to put on over their regular clothes that they might be wearing when they're next to and holding one of the children. And after smoking, these garments should be removed, and you can wash hands and faces before coming back to work to hopefully reduce that exposure for children. Also to be mindful about where, if you are allowing smoking on your property, that people are not going out and smoking near anything that can burn. So there are still also dangers about mulch or planters and the addition of fire. So asking people to make sure that they're responsibly putting out their cigarettes if they're choosing to go out and smoke. But another nice step around that is making sure asking people to not smoke on the property. And again, related to allowing smoking on the property if you choose, as Meg related to earlier, that Maine law requires for the workplace policy that if you allow smoking or are going to have a designated smoking area, that it be at least 20 feet from any door, window, or sort of ventilation system to ensure that smoking and materials do not come back into the building. So making sure that that secondhand smoke does not waft back in. So being mindful of that, and this is based upon many national studies about how far away you need to be from tobacco use in order to remove its harm, and knowing that smoking within 20 feet of a non-smoker can cause toxic levels that are just as high as they would be in an indoor location if you're outside. So making sure that people are going further away, and if they are going to be smoking, that you're creating a place there where they can safely dispose of those materials, that they will be left out of the hands of and out of the reach of children.
So as Sarah had mentioned earlier, as you consider adopting one of these policies or more strongly enforcing a smoke-free policy that you may already have, remember that the piece of what you're doing with enforcement here is about the smoke, not the smoker. So it's important to educate parents about the dangers of tobacco smoke, as Sarah had mentioned some of the dangers with secondhand smoke and then that third-hand smoke piece, but that you separate the behavior and the person who's doing it. And it makes it a less confrontational way to talk to people about it. So if you have parents or they have children have family members who smoke, one additional step they can take to protect their children is by never allowing smoking in their home or in their vehicle, which, as we had mentioned earlier, smoking in their vehicle while children are present is against state law, but we know that there are people out there who would smoke when their children is not in the car, and that third-hand smoke residue would remain. And we'll talk more about keeping home smoke free here in a few minutes. But one interesting thing to think about is 70% of all tobacco users are interested in quitting. So making sure that the parents you work with know about free resources like the Maine Tobacco Helpline, that phone number there at the bottom, the 1-800-207-1230, is a free resource for anybody living in the state of Maine who's interested in quitting. And encouraging them, letting them know quitting is a great thing they can do for their own health and for their child to be protected from secondhand smoke as well as third-hand smoke. So about the policy. So the steps to create a smoke-free childcare facility. We know that it takes a lot of work to do these things, but it is a few simple steps that will help walk you through and then provide you some resources to make sure you can do this. So the first one is drafting a clear and concise policy. And I think we had mentioned earlier, we do have sample language on our website that you can download. Then you communicate that policy with staff and families. Explain the change and why you're going smoke-free. And again, the policy language we have, and there's information on our website that can give you a few bullet points as to why you're doing this, and have it be part of a bigger health and wellness practice. And then implement the policy. So make sure your policy has a date as to when this is effective. Maybe you're going to go effective April 1st or, March 15th or something. Give yourself a few weeks if this is something that you don't already have in place to make sure that you can have all the pieces in place. As part of your implementation, you're going to put up smoke-free signs, and again, free resources that you can download. You can order some from a website that we'll give you links to. And then positively encourage and enforce your policy. Again, this is about the smoke, not the smoker, so you're not negatively penalizing the individual, but talking about the behavior that they're doing. So some key components to a successful smoke-free policy, and this is the actual policy language itself. So the policy statement, and this is the rationale, the why you're going to be going 100% smoke-free. The definition of your policy, so this is the when and where smoking is prohibited, whether it's on all of your property, only in certain areas, time of day, whatever fits your facility best. And procedures, and this is how the policy will be enforced. Is there going to be any repercussions for staff who are repeating offending, or for parents who aren't abiding by your policy? And then communication, which is always the biggest piece. So, you can send a letter home to parents that explains, effective this date, this is the change in our policy. Attach a copy of the policy or include the policy language in that letter. Post the policy in highly visible locations. I know a lot of childcare facilities have, bulletin boards near the door where they can post the comings and goings of things happening. If you had social media pages where you're connecting with parents or email, those are places you can communicate as well. And as you're thinking about or working on adopting or updating your policy, don't reinvent the wheel. Again, we have sample policy language available for download at our website, which is breatheasymaine.org/childcare.
Awesome. Thanks, Meg. So to talk a little bit more about those resources and what we have available, here is a look at our website. At the breatheasymaine.org/childcare section, you can find a lot of resources, including our childcare toolkit. This was something that we first developed probably about 3 years ago, working with partners at the Maine CDC and the Maine Public Health Association. And we put out this broad toolkit, and hopefully a lot of you have seen it because we mailed it out to providers across the state with information, background about those laws, about second and third hand smoke to understand that, as well as template policy language and how to talk to families. So this is a great resource to find and be able to download right on the website. Additionally, on our site, you can find information about sample policy language. So as Meg was just highlighting, sort of those 3 sections of the policy, the rationale, the sort of policy statement, what the teeth of it are, as well as the enforcement. You can find templates because there's a lot of work that's been done and a lot of successful policies that have been implemented. So you can download a Word file document and just be able to take it from there to be able to work on addressing smoke-free policies and addressing second and third hand smoke. Additionally, you can find fact sheets and resources on the website. So you'll find our second and third hand smoke fact sheets, as well as if you want to go to other sections of the website, you can find further information there. You can find additional webinar recordings. We'll be posting this webinar recording on that page, as well as 2 previous webinars we've conducted for childcare providers, as well as that link to the PTM store. So the Partnership for Tobacco-Free Maine, or PTM, as Meg had mentioned, has great free signage, as well as resources that could be perfect for bulletin boards talking about the Maine Tobacco Helpline and quitting tobacco if you're looking for that for your staff or for your families that you're serving. One of the other pieces that's great that we have on our site that you can get information about, and we're going to talk about a little bit more, is our Smoke-Free Homes Pledge program. This is a great opportunity for families to be able to take the pledge, so encouraging the families you work with. And so you can download materials as well as link directly to the area where you can take the pledge online. So to talk a little bit more about the PTM store and the other quitting resources that I just highlighted at the sort of broad level, this is a look at the Partnership for Tobacco-Free Maine's online resource bank. Again, as we mentioned, these are free resources available to folks working in the state of Maine. Whether you want to learn more about the laws, get resources on secondhand smoke, want helpline materials, so stuff about the Maine Tobacco Helpline. It's a great resource to be able to get that, and it'll be sent to you for free from the Maine CDC. And then the 2 quitting resources. If you're working with staff who might be interested in quitting, or parents who are looking at it. Again, as Meg mentioned, about 70% of tobacco users at any time are contemplating quitting at some level. So you want to make sure that they know about the resources that are available. For example, the Maine Tobacco Helpline, which is a free online phone counseling. And for someone who doesn't have health insurance coverage for nicotine replacement therapy, in addition to getting counseling, they can even get resources like that can help them deal with their cravings. Also, if you have people who are interested in getting online and getting support for quitting, they can visit thequitlink.com, which is a website that's sort of created more of a social platform for supporting people who are trying to quit. So these are a lot of great resources that we can hit on to be able to support people when you're adopting the smoke-free policy. Because as we talked about, that it really is about the smoke, not the smoker, but you want to make sure that you're also providing those resources for if it is the time for someone to quit. For example, if you're talking with parents about the dangers of second and third-hand smoke and they're seeing the policy change happening at your child care facility, they might be thinking for the first time about the impact that has potentially on their child. So they either want to cut back or quit. So having that resource and information available can be really a great resource to help them. So I'm going to talk briefly about the Smoke-Free Homes Pledge program that we hit on that's available on our website. And then Meg's going to talk about some of the fun pieces that relate to it. This started out, our program began in 2007 with a grant from the EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency, and has been able to continue with support from our funder at the Partnership for Tobacco-Free Maine at the Maine CDC. So it's really sort of hopefully a more proactive, fun way that families can work to reduce exposure to secondhand smoke and now third-hand smoke where their children spend the most time, which is in the home. And we know that still in the United States, 2 out of every 5 children are still exposed to secondhand smoke. And the vast majority of that does happen in the home because of all the great laws and protections that are happening in childcare facilities, in schools, in vehicles. So really getting people to take that next step of taking the pledge and making sure that they're just taking it outside. Or even if they're non-smokers, if they're making sure that people are not, visitors who come in, grandparents or aunts and uncles or friends, come to their house, do not smoke inside the home, that could lead to secondhand and third-hand smoke exposure for their child and for everyone who's in the home, actually. And so we've seen now more than 5,000 families that have taken the pledge to keep their homes smoke-free. Very exciting. We know that it's a really sort of more fun, proactive opportunity to do this, and it can be completed online or a postcard that can be sent through the mail to us. If you're a childcare provider and are interested in these resources, there are pieces you can download, or we could send you postcards that could be sent back if you wanted to share this with something with your families. And when the pledge is taken, the families receive a fun pack of materials. So a variety of different things, including information about second and third hand smoke, information about quitting and the Maine Tobacco Helpline, as well as some more fun things that give the opportunity to talk about tobacco and secondhand smoke with your kids. So coasters and coloring sheets and things that Meg is going to be able to chat about in just a second here, that give us another proactive opportunity to talk about, and maybe an activity to do with the children that you're serving through your facility.
Yes. So we have in the fun pack, there are these postcards for children to draw on, with the encouragement and the prompt to draw what a smoke-free world looks like to me. So there's a few examples of some of the previous postcards we've received. That's just a small snapshot of them. So these postcards can be mailed back to the Breathe Easy Coalition, and selected entries will be displayed on our website and our social media pages. And it's always really fun for us here in the office to get these back and, see how kids view the world of a smoke-free a smoke-free world. And if this is something that you might like to implement in your facility, you can contact us. We'll be putting our email address up at the very end, and we could probably send you some of these postcards. You could have the kids draw on them and then mail them back to us. And maybe use that as a way to start the conversation with parents and families too about them taking the pledge and doing this in their own home. So some next steps following up to the, concluding to this webinar. On your screen is the link to the webinar evaluation, and we'll have that, and we'll leave that up again a little bit so that you can copy and paste or write that link down, because that is the survey that you'll want to fill out. And the link to that is surveymonkey.com/r/sfchildcare2016 with no spaces anywhere. So when you complete that certificate of that evaluation, there's contact information in there of your email address and the facility workout and stuff like that, so that we can send you the certificate of completion. And we ask that you allow 1 to 2 weeks for that to be emailed to you. In that evaluation, you can also request printed copies of our smoke-free childcare provider toolkit. That will be a little bit longer for those to come, just so that we can get the printed copies and then send them out in the mail to you. And then again, as we had mentioned at the very beginning, the webinar recording can be viewed online on YouTube, on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/sfhousing. And if you'll notice, we just put the evaluation link in the chat box, so you should all be seeing that.
Awesome. So thank you so much for joining us on the webinar. Here are the different ways to be able to connect with the coalition. We'd love to connect and be able to share information with you on our variety of social media pages. You can find us, we're all over the place, and Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And oftentimes you'll see things we're posting about the Smoke-Free Homes Pledge or information about second and third-hand smoke that we hope will be useful. But most importantly, that section of our website, breatheasymaine.org/childcare, is a really useful opportunity to make sure that you're getting all of the latest information. As we had mentioned, for example, we had just updated our information to include more about how the laws have changed with the addition of electronic cigarettes to Maine smoke-free laws. So you can get that updated language and all of those different pieces. Also, you can contact the coalition. We have our direct email address here and phone number to give you an opportunity to reach out to us if you have specific questions or needs, or as Meg mentioned, if you want to get some of those postcards. Some of the pieces that we get back are really adorable, and we love to see how kids are taking that on and how they can see about this. It's a great piece to incorporate if you're looking at doing any wellness programs with your childcare facilities or want to talk about that. So we're going to give it a quick second here to open up for any questions that people might have. So we'll give you a second. If you have a question, please enter it into the question box, and we'd be happy to answer those. So one quick question that just came in was about the Smoke-Free Homes Pledge and asked how people can take that online. And the key to that is, again, if you go to that breatheasymaine.org website, instead of /childcare, if you go to breatheasymaine.org/pledge, people can find the pledge form right there and can choose to get one of those kits sent home to them. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on today's webinar. Again, please be on the lookout for the recording being available online on our YouTube page at youtube.com/sfhousing. And if you can make sure to take that evaluation, we'll send you a certificate for the contact hour for participating. And we really appreciate your efforts and support to make sure that we're protecting children in Maine from secondhand smoke and third-hand smoke and supporting those tobacco-free lifestyles. Thank you very much.